Hey guys, so I get a lot of questions about my gear, so I thought I'd make a demo of my board and I'll go into a little bit of detail on some of the sounds and settings I use on the timeline. If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm playing a US Tele into a Deluxe Reverb reissue and an M12, DrZ M12. Everything's set up for stereo, but I've only got a mic on the Deluxe Reverb and a room mic to try and capture some of the stereo field. So yeah. First I run into the diamond compressor, that's always on. Then from there it goes to the Micro POG, and then out of that I go into my Fulldrive. I'm using that on the comp cut mode. Then from there I go into my volume pedal, which is a Goodrich 120L low profile volume pedal. Out of that goes into the MXR Carbon Copy, which is a really nice and simple analog delay. Out of the Carbon Copy I go into my tuner, nothing too exciting there. Then from the tuner it goes into the Strymon Capistan. I've got that hooked up to this one's mine favorite switch. And then out of the Capistan it splits into stereo and that goes into the Strymon Timeline. And then that's hooked up to a disaster area MIDI controller. That's a 3XL with the expression wheel. And then from there I go into the Strymon Flint, and then that goes out into my amps. So that's basically it. I'll go into a little bit of detail on the sounds I get on my timeline. So here's my clean sound. So my first sound here is just a digital delay. Now the settings I have for that, the mix is about, what's that? That's about 11 o'clock. The repeats I have at about 2 o'clock. The time is set for 4:10. I don't have any smear or any filters inside the additional settings. The filter, I have set that where it is there. That would say it's about 9 or 10 o'clock. I don't use any grit at all for that, and a tiny bit of speed and a little bit more depth to get a little bit of modulation, and that just helps with the stereo widening of the sound. And that's pretty much my digital delay sound. Now depending on the song I'll change maybe the repeats and the time and the mix. Everything else pretty much stays the same. Just depends on what's working for that part. So that's basically my digital delay patch. The second sound I use a lot is a pattern delay. And for that one I have the mix usually at about noon, the repeats at about noon, and the time there is 280. Again I have the filter pretty much where it is there. I don't put any grit on that, and the same amount of modulation. I don't use any of the internal settings within the Strymon Timeline, like the smear or anything like that. I'm using pattern 1 for this one, and this gives me a bit of like a stereo ping pong effect. Now it's not going to come out that well because I don't have both the amps mic'd, but I'll see what I can do. So they're basically the two sounds that I use for my ambient instrumental stuff. I just switch between the two depending on the song, and again I use the on this setting I use the pattern delay, and I will from time to time change the repeats, change the mix and the time, but everything else will stay the same. Another patch that I use, or sound sorry, that I use a lot is a reverse delay, and with this one I have the mix all the way up and just a little bit of repeats to get this sort of effect. So that sound to me is like having a reverse loop ready to go, and it sort of gives a little bit of a different sound for some of the ambient stuff. That's basically it. The other sound that I will use from time to time, I'll use this patch, the reverse patch, but I'll swing around to the lo-fi and I'll do the same thing. I'll turn the mix all the way up, have the repeats relatively low, and get the same sort of effect. So rather than having my dry signal come through, I just purely have the lo-fi sound, and it gets you that degraded sort of sound. It's nice with some lead parts and that. That's pretty much it. They're my main sounds. I'll just give you a quick demo of this, what it sounds like with all the pedals on. So as you can tell there, I have all the delays on at the same time. It sort of mashes them all together and you get a nice sort of wash of sound. And then for the swells, I have a setting in the favorite, and I'll put a bit of POG on this one. So yeah, that's it. Again, if you've got any questions, chuck them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. See ya.